106.7 KROQ FM in HD Pasadena, Los Angeles, Orange County. This is the world famous KROQ.
This is one of the days that people don't want to have ever. When you lose somebody that you really care about. We have a studio full of people. Jed the Fish passed away this morning, and he was special. And when I was thinking about it before, I was thinking if there's anybody that is KROQ, it's Jed the Fish. And not afraid to be so freaking weird. I didn't even understand what he was saying half the time, and I loved him. So we have a room full of people. We have Megan, we have Darcy, we have Rippey, who used to run his board for a long time. We have Sluggo, we have Gia, we have Tami, we have Kat, we have Lightning, and we have Richard Blade. And we're all here, and we're going to talk and celebrate the person that is and was Jed the Fish, because he has had such a profound influence on all of us. We'll be right back. It is Kevin Ryder. It is Richard Blade.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Of course.
Under tough circumstances.
I have Bean on the phone. Hey, Bean.
Hello, KROQ Super Friends.
Hey.
We are all gathered today because Jed the Fish passed away this morning. And I got to tell you, I'm equally sad, but also every time I heard his voice or his name, I was happy.
He made a lot of people smile.
He really did. Mm-hmm. And how do you say goodbye to a person like that? Like, the world is a darker place now because he's not here.
It's true. What do you think, Bean?
Well, you're absolutely right. One of the things that people remember most about Jed, and you'll see this in the comments all over social media today, is the laugh. People always remember Jed the Fish and his laugh. And he loved to laugh because he found joy in life. He was such a positive person and a curious person, and he rooted for everybody. I consider him a unicorn because, like you, Richard, he was a great guy on and off the air. I really do think, and I've said this so many times throughout the years, that he is the lead head on the Mount Rushmore of KROQ. And you start looking at the building blocks of this great radio station over the years, Jed the Fish is out way in front, as far as I'm concerned, as being the greatest of all time. And you know, all of us grew up listening to people on the radio and admiring them and trying to be like them, emulating them. That was impossible with Jed the Fish.
Yes, it was.
He was a one of a kind. There's no way you could go on and try to be Jed the Fish because we just aren't wired the same way Jed the Fish was wired. He was in his own universe, and it seems like a wonderful place to play. And gosh, you know, I've been in touch with him, not as much as I wish I had over the years, but even to the end, to the very last time I talked to him, he still seemed delighted with the world. And I love that about him. You just, like you said, Richard, you just felt good being around the man.
I remember the first time I heard him, I was pulling into a bank parking lot in Sherman Oaks and listening to KROQ. And I was just dreaming about one day being on KROQ. And I heard Jed's laugh. That was the first thing I ever heard. Mm-hmm. I heard this. And I never.
Could I hear that impression again?
Well, it's a very bad impression. But Jed would tell you if he was here, and I wish he was, that he had 11 different laughs that he got from his family. But it was wild, and I just sat in the car, transfixed, and almost didn't walk into the bank. I forgot why I was parked in the parking lot. And I just thought, wow. And it was a time when KROQ had just such unique talents. I mean, there was Jed, and then there was the guy who just walked in, Freddy Snakeskin, and you'd listen to Freddy, and he'd say, and now more punishment, here's James Brown. And it was like, wow, what station is this? But, I mean, they laid the foundation for everything that was to follow and still exists to this day.
Freddie, what was your first memory of Jed?
Green mic.
Probably when I was first talking to Rick Carroll, and he told me I'd have to pick another name. Because at that point I was known as Dave Trout, and he said, well, we already have a fish. So I figured a station without a license, I'll be there maybe 3 or 4 months. I'll just pick something, the most ridiculous, stupid name I can think of.
Yeah. You went with Freddie.
Accomplished.
Bean, do you remember in the very first year when we were on the air and we were terrible, Most of the time, radio stations work this way. The programming department goes to the afternoon or midday or night person and says, we need to pump up our morning show, so let's play some clips of the morning show on your program. And that didn't happen here because Jed went to Kevin or Andy and said, give me clips to play from them. And I'm
so glad you brought that up. Because this is another story that is emerging today about Jed the Fish from multiple people. I don't know if you saw what Jimmy Kimmel had to say, but he posted it earlier today about when he came to work on our show when he was 27 years old and he was nervous as hell being on the radio in Los Angeles, like we all were when we started, right? And he said, I'm going to read this from Jimmy Kimmel. He said, this man, Jed the Fish, who was already a legend, pulled me aside to reassure me and tell me that I was doing great. His words meant the world to me then, and they still do. There was no one like him, no matter how hard they tried. We will miss you, Jed the Fish. Ralph Garman posted an almost identical thing earlier today, too. He said when he wasn't feeling a lot of love sometimes, Jed was the guy that came to him and said, hey, I love what you're doing in the morning. Keep it up. And he really just wrapped his arms around everybody. He was rooting for everybody. A lot of times the morning show is hated. We certainly deserve to be. But he was never gunning for our jobs. He was never trying to get us fired. He just wanted us to be part of the family. And gosh, you can't help but love a guy like that.
And one of the things about Jed that I found that it really was like a family, not only at KROQ, but off the air. I got to spend quite a bit of time with Jed because he wanted to learn to scuba dive, and I was an instructor, and so I taught him to dive, and then that spawned a whole bunch of dive trips, and we just had the best time.
What happens when you're underwater and you laugh like that? Into the thing.
Hold your regulator in, Jed. Hold it in.
Trying to look for serious
I want to
fish.
tell another story just real quick.
Yes, go ahead,
guys. And by the way, it's an honor to be on with you, Freddy Snakeskin, who is also up on that Mount Rushmore.
The Shaw, go on with you now.
I was a huge KROQ fan back in the day, long before the internet, long before you were able to stream. I used to mail away. Some of you older radio guys will remember California Air Checks was a service where you could pay to have cassettes of radio stations sent to you so you could hear them from around the country. That was the only way to hear those stations unless you were in the market. And I just fell in love with KROQ just from listening to those, and I ended up making 2 different vacations in the 1980s to come to Los Angeles from where I was living on the East Coast just to listen to and record KROQ. Jed the Fish, I didn't think he could be real when I heard him. I had never heard anybody with such nonsense. Every break, you would tune in, and every break was a non sequitur. It had nothing to do with anything that was going on in the world today, yet he still made it so fun. You almost had to listen because you couldn't believe what craziness was going to come out of his mouth next. And anyone who had to ever be an artist and be interviewed by Jed the Fish, how many stories are there of those, of just people slack-jawed, having no idea what hit them? I mean, I remember seeing Beck's face when he was trying to even just decipher Jed's questions sometimes in the interview.
And I can't figure out Beck. So
right.
I remember Frank Zappa getting royally pissed and walking out because Rick Carroll called him on the intercom and said, "Quit talking, play a record." He says, "That was your boss just telling you to quit talking and play a record, right?" And Jed goes, "Well, yeah,
oh,
I sure
man.
was."
And he was there for
Frank just
34
threw down his
years. Is
headphones
that what
and
I
left.
understand? 34 years?
34 years, yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Unbelievable.
I remember when the new Oingo Boingo album came in because he was a huge supporter. His 2 big bands were Oingo Boingo and Devo. I mean, he loved those groups. I remember the new Boingo album came in and he said, let's listen to it together. And he got the needle, dropped it on the track 1, played about 8 seconds of it, dropped it on track 2, played about 8 seconds.
What?
And then turned the album.
Nobody does it that way.
He did it all that way. And then he said, I'm going to open up the phones. You tell me which one to go back and play through all the way. And the phone lines exploded. And Rick Carroll, God bless him as a program director, instead of firing Jed, came in and goes, that was great. You know, today if you did that, wow.
Anybody that was Jed's program director. I'm doing some research for writing a book, and the very first break that Jed ever did on the air was a 15-second intro, and he didn't say KROQ in any part of it. He did this. Hee-yaw, hee-yaw, hee-yaw. He did that for 15 seconds and then stopped and the song played. We're like, what? That's your first thing you're going to do on KROQ? That's insanity.
Because that would be the last thing on any other radio station.
Yes. So that's some fond memories of Jed. All right, Bean, thank you for calling. We appreciate it. We'd like to keep you for a couple hours if you want to stay up.
Oh, I can't hear you. You're breaking up, Kevin. It was fun.
That's what I thought. All right, thank you for calling.
The king is
Bye, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back. 47 KROQ is KROQ. We have a room full of dignitaries, as I like to call us. Our friend Jed the Fish passed away this morning, and we're all here to remember him. Sluggo, you're here. You talked to Noodles from The Offspring?
Yeah, and he once we're going to talk to him, actually. We're going to give him a call, but he had posted this earlier today. This is such sad news. We were fans of Jed and his show on KROQ long before we ever met him. He was the first DJ to spin Come Out and Play on the radio, which changed our band's trajectory in ways we never thought possible. Jed was very smart and funny with a very unique way of looking at the world. His sense of humor was insane in all the best ways. He is forever a local hero who will be greatly missed. R.I.P. legend, and that's from The Offspring today.
Oh, why does it keep hanging up?
Oh, of course you're hanging up on people. That's
Come
what you
on now.
do. Paul McCartney. Who
I'm
else is
trying
hanging
my
up on?
best to call Noodles. All right, I think I know.
Let's give his number out on the air, shall we?
Have somebody else dial it?
Tell them to answer.
Someone else call. Someone else.
Someone else call. You guys shut up. All right, let's see if this works.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Your call cannot be completed.
What?
Oh, that was funky.
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me? That's weird.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, now we can hear you. Hi, Noodles.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Horrible.
It's going all right. I mean, look, we are sad, and yet we were happy to have had Jed the Fish in our lives for so long.
Absolutely, 100%.
Tell us about your history with the radio station with Jed.
Well, I mean, I was a fan before I ever got to meet him. Just loved his weird sense of humor, you know, the wacky things he would say. KROQ Chip said something earlier today that he was the epitome of an individual. There's nobody else in the world like him.
Yep.
And that's absolutely 100% true.
People
Nobody
say that
says,
a lot about people, but for him, it's absolutely, he's the top of that list.
Yeah, but I've never met anybody in my whole life. I go, you know, you remind me of Jed the Fish. 'Cause there's nobody like that, you know. So
that is true.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he could very well be responsible for me having a career too. He was the first person to Come Out and Play on the radio. He played it as his catch of the day during the afternoon drive time.
What year was that?
That was 94.
And dude, I gotta tell you, you know, because I was in there with him a lot at Sluggo, and I would, you know, he rarely was like, you gotta really listen to this one. This one is. He was so excited about that record. He was so excited, and so he really, you know, got me on. And we were like, you know, just every time we played it, he was always so happy. And then when it actually got added into rotation, and he's like going in and Kevin going, you know, the boss here, we need to add some more. We need more Offspring. These guys are amazing. He was so excited about you guys in particular. So I wanted
that is so cool to hear. I mean, that's how he always was with us.
Yeah,
you know, and I felt that it was genuine.
Very
I mean, you can usually tell, but a lot of times, you know, you just get people to, you know, tell you you're the greatest until you walk away. But I always felt with Jed that it was genuine for sure.
I think that's a real thing about Jed, is that he was probably one of the most genuine people I've ever known in this business, by far.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And it's a business where you can easily, you know, you try to make jokes, you try to say things, you try to be interesting. You can easily go outside of who you really are. But he was always 100% Jed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and his sense of humor was sometimes just flat out wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, flat out wrong. Agreed.
I think I loved him more for that.
Yes,
I mean, it's
same.
Just, like, you know, you're cringing while you're, you know, laughing from the belly too.
Yeah,
so,
we have some recordings of him, like some of the people he talked to and some of the calls he took, and they were definitely not the right attitude, not what you're supposed to do on the radio.
I mean, really, everything he did is what you're not supposed to do on the radio.
Yes.
It's a miracle that he worked here for 34 years.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Well, you might know a little bit about that, Kevin. Let's be honest.
Don't put me with Jed. Jed is one of a kind. Remember that.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, Noodles. Well, we appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me say a couple of words, because he really did. He was just a constant in my life, and I'm really sad that he's gone. It was a very sad news to hear this morning.
Yes, that's very true. Thank you, Noodles. We appreciate it. Here's Jed talking about his laugh that everybody loves so much. He's not talking about his laugh as much as just laughing like a hyena.
That's Jed.
Jed was so joyful.
Yeah.
Even when he had a difficult life.
Yes.
He had a difficult life.
A lot that he went through.
Yes.
Put himself through, as he would say quite often.
Yeah, exactly. And yet he was always a joy to be around.
I remember I was thinking just yesterday when I started finding out the news of the condition that he was in. And by the way, if anyone concerned, he passed peacefully at home in hospice, and he went very quietly and was where he wanted to be. But Jed had a way of looking at the problem in front of him, and instead of really focusing on the drama and all the bad stuff about it and getting all upset about it, he would look to the end game and where he needs to be comfortable, and he would get himself there. And he taught me that. He taught me so much, but he taught me that in particular, to just look to be there and get yourself there. And that's what he did, and I think that's what he did with his last few days, honestly.
Yeah. Kat Corbett is also here. Hey, Kat. So I didn't mean to wake you up.
That's all right. I'm just listening to these stories that I haven't heard, and as well as I have known Jed.
What memories do you have of Jed?
Well, I have memories of Jed because I did middays, and Jed would come on right after me. Always late, by the way.
Always late.
I had to threaten his life so many times.
That's the best of us are always late. That's what I like to say.
There were I warned him. I said, if you're late again, I'm just leaving the studio, and I did. So that's when our good friend Rick was called, because Weatherly was like, I can't have dead air. I can't be late.
I love it so much that you threatened. He knew you meant it.
Yeah.
And still he was late.
I know. Jackass. Anyway, one of my favorite memories of Jed was, I'm doing my show. He would always come in early so we could catch up and we could talk and share whatever. He comes in, he's like, Kat, oh my God, did you know that powdered creamer is explosive? And I'm like, what? And he's like, come on. He's like, put a long song on, or just like let it roll. So I set up the board so the songs would roll during my show.
Right.
This is the Venice building. We ran to the kitchen. He pours a bunch of powdered creamer on the counter, and then lights it on fire, and it blows up. And I'm like, oh my God. I expected the fire department to come. First of all, no one came because it's KROQ, and no one cared. There was an explosion.
Yeah, they set off an explosion. We don't care.
And then I went back to my show, and no one had any idea that was going on.
Here's the thing that I think I loved about Jed the most is that KROQ was a really incredibly important station, especially in the late 70s, all through the 80s. He never took it seriously. He never took himself seriously. He never acted like he was at an important radio. Just the opposite. He's getting Kat to go into the kitchen and light stuff on fire.
I think that's why we all gravitate to this place and why we're all qualified, because we all have a level of not caring.
That is true.
But I think in the not caring is where the genius lies, especially
Agreed.
For Jed.
Agreed.
So
he was expert at it.
He cannot care all day long as long as he shows up on time.
But he wanted to entertain. I mean, he always wanted to make sure that what was going on the air was very funny and that whoever was listening would appreciate it.
I don't think he did.
I don't know, Rick.
I don't know. There were times.
Nope. Okay, no.
Rick, come on up.
Yeah, Rick.
Rick, come on up.
Rick ran Jed the Fish's board for a while.
Jed better than anyone in this room by far.
So he cared about the content of his show, or he did not?
The more we tried to care, and the more Kevin Weatherly would give us instructions, the lower the ratings would go. So we decided the best thing to do was to not care,
right,
and not pay attention to the show, and ratings went up.
I love that.
That's beautiful.
Stop the caring.
Stop the caring.
Stop caring. That's
Secret to radio.
That's the message today. Well, we're going to be celebrating Jed the Fish. He passed away today, unfortunately. We're sad about that, but we are going to be celebrating the person that is and was Jed the Fish. 106.7 KROQ is KROQ. It is the world-famous KROQ. We got news this morning that one of our own passed away, Jed the Fish, who was one hell of a human being. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Richard Blade is here. We have a room full of some of the original KROQ people, a lot of the people that worked with Jed. Lightning is here. Lightning was our producer for what years?
Oh, my gosh. 91 through, 17? Something like that? Well, no, there's some Dave the King of Mexico in there as well.
Sure.
Long time, 20-some-odd years.
And your memories of Jed?
So growing up in Southern California, you had the greats like Depeche Mode, New Order, you had all the major bands, and then you had the DJs that played those bands at KROQ. You had Richard Blade and Freddy. These guys are icons in Southern California. Jed was superhuman to us young guys. He appeared to live the life that everyone wanted. He was born without the fear gene. Like, he just did whatever he wanted. At least that's how it appeared. And then later coming to work here, he proved that out. It was super weird working with him, because now I'm working with heroes. Like, these guys in this room, forgive me if my voice cracks, but it's freaky. Even today, I still have to pinch myself. I'm with these people. And he was just so special, and everything that you heard on the air was real, as everyone here said already. But he brought a magic and a smile every single time. And I remember one time I'm in the morning show office, and I'm having crappy days. I did often trying to get a guest that wouldn't book or whatever. And my back is to the door, and there's an 8-foot ladder in the office because I was hanging new speakers in the ceiling. And I hear Jed walk in, but my back is to him. And he's like, "Oh, there's some bubble gum on the ceiling." And I'm like, well, okay, so I don't turn around. He's trying to bait me into it. Okay, right. I'm not going to go for it. But I hear him go up the ladder, and this ladder is just inches from my seat. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Light, I got it. And now, all right, I take the bait. I flip around, and his scrotum has been pulled from his shorts and is now on my forehead.
Those were different times, weren't they?
Different times. I'm like, this is why I work here.
How long do you think he was in position waiting for you to pay attention?
It could have been minutes. He was going to get the gag. He was going to do it. And I think everyone has a similar experience where Jed, just whether you were with him in Pasadena blowing stuff up in the hills, or he's just... everyone wanted a piece of that magic, I think.
2 words, no filter.
Yeah.
That's the way that Jed was. He was just amazing.
And we've all fought with filters for our entire lives and fought with external filters, and he just had none of it. Had none of it.
He was amazing. Me and a good friend of mine, Peter Facer, who worked on some of the TV shows I did, we went over to Jed's house on New Year's Eve, because he lived in Pasadena, right off
by the Rose Parade. Yeah.
And he said, "Come on over, you can be at the house, you can stay there and then go to the parade in the morning." So he went over, and Peter and I were walking through his house, and it was spotless. It was so clean. And Peter turned to me, and he goes, "Where's all the crap?" Because everyone's got, particularly when you're young. And Jed overheard, and he goes, "It's over here." And we walk over to these double doors of a closet, and he opens it, and literally we were buried in an avalanche of dirty clothes and everything like that. But he would throw everything in there and just close the door. And he thought that was the most normal thing to do in life.
Of course.
It was because it was Jed.
Yeah.
He was just a wonderful guy. But back to the scuba diving, he was also one of the best students I ever had.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
I would think he would be a terrible student.
You would think that, but he was just brilliant. You told him what to do, no questions. It's like, I could have said, jump backwards from a 50-foot, diving board, and he would go, "Okay." But no, he didn't. just followed all the instructions. And, he got certified immediately the first time. Him and Scott Mason were the two, who Scott is no longer with us as well.
Right.
They were just two of the best students ever.
Wow.
Then I went diving with you guys off of Catalina that time.
Yeah, that was not as successful. Tami, Heide, hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I can't believe it took Jed the Fish passing away to get the band back together.
Yes, it is strange
nice
to have everyone in the room.
Yeah, when you were talking to Kat Corbett about the kitchen explosion, there were many Jed kitchen explosion stories. They would, Jed and producer Rick Rippey and Sluggo, I think you were involved too, you would take like CDs, Creed or Candlebud or Nickelback and put them in the microwave and mic that, and so you'd hear all that. And then there was the time that Rick and Jed replaced Sluggo's coffee with decaf.
Oh, nice.
For about a week, they would do the switch with the pot right when he was making the coffee. And so for about a week, Sluggo's like, man, I've got these intense migraine headaches. Yeah, that happened. And that happened frequently, those kind of things.
Well, now that the band's back together in Jed's honor, we should do what they did in the movie FM back in the day. We should barricade the doors. And we should go back and bust out a flock of seagulls and start playing that.
Play whatever we want!
I like it. Here's a special tribute to Jed.
Such terrible news today. Jed'em Fish'em, Jed the Fish. A unique DJ, a fantastic personality, and the guy with the greatest laugh on radio is no longer with us. A KROQ icon, a KROQ legend. You will be so missed, Jed. R.I.P., my friend.
Hey, this is Glenn.
And this is Tom.
From No Doubt.
This is Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park.
Hi, I'm Matt from the band Muse.
This is Trent from Nine Inch Nails.
Brandon Boyd from Incubus.
Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode.
And you're listening to Jed the Fish.
Jed the Fish.
Jed the Fish.
Hey, it's Katy Perry, and you're listening to my favorite little Jed the Fish on the world famous KROQ. Thank you for playing my song, Jed.
So was Rodney on the Rock one of the first people to play Oingo Boingo?
It was Jed the Fish.
Oh, Jed the Fish.
Yeah.
Wow.
He discovered it before we had even any released album. It was a 4-song EP that we pressed ourselves, made 100 copies of, and Jed somehow got a copy and started playing it, and we really owe everything to that.
Oh my gosh. Well, shout out to Jed the Fish.
Shout out to Jed the Fish.
Hello, Sonny Man. This is the Jed the Fish. You've been curious about me? I've been curious about me too. KROQ. I started DJing when I was 3. I didn't really start doing it professionally until I got out of college. It's always been fun. You're able to find out how you actually touch people when you can play a certain song. Hello, what if I told you this was Jed the Fish? No matter.
Where's Jed?
You're enjoying yourself. What happened? Does it hurt to have a good time? I'm watching you! From KROQ. The KROQ Weenie Roast. Don't say Peenie Roast. Say Weenie Roast. And I'm here with Foster the People, Fenster the Purple, Fester the Pimple.
Jed the Fish from KROQ FM, and you should listen to us because we play the best music, and we play KROQ music, and this is take 5 or something like that.
Well, it's the last damn break, and it went by really fast. I had fun with you tonight. We play music. It's entertaining. Sometimes in bad taste, but it's fun.
Thank you to the weird famous Jed the Fish, who brought so much to KROQ's airwaves and beyond. We will miss you and love you and remember you forever.
My little dingas, the fricashingas, the mocalingas.
We are back here. We are celebrating the life of Jed the Fish because he passed away this morning, and he meant something to every single person that's come through this radio station. And I got to tell you, when I was first hired, and I've always thought this, everybody before me, that was the real KROQ. I always felt like 80s, late 70s, 80s, that's when KROQ was at its most pure. And Freddy Snakeskin is here. You worked most of that time.
Well, a lot of it. from 1980 to 1990.
All right, so that's a lot of it. You have a story about Jed?
I do, as a matter of fact. Once upon a time, it was my year to be the program director, so Ken Roberts, the owner, had hired this clueless sales guy from San Francisco to come in and be the new general manager.
Okay.
So it was my duty to show him around the station, which tours never took long in Pasadena. Basically, the original dumpy little building. So I'm going, well, this is the production closet. These are the sales cubicles, and then we come to the control room, and this is where the magic happens. So I opened the door, kind of snuck a peek in, and I said, "Are you decent?" And sure enough, Jed was standing there, stark naked.
Wait, you were joking? And he was joking. Naked.
So I very quickly...
Okay, hold on. Let's back up a second. So you open the door and he's naked.
He's standing there, stark naked.
If you hadn't been giving a tour, like, did he know you were giving a tour and that's why he did it?
No.
He just happened to be in there naked.
Just happened to be
God, I love
there.
that guy.
I have no idea what the rationale or the reason was. But there didn't really necessarily have to be one.
There almost never was for Jed.
So basically, and this guy, I forget his name, Mike something, he sort of like craned his neck, but I kind of stood in the door, so he...
You were kind of blocking the view?
We see.
Was Jed mad at you for blocking the view?
I don't know, but he said, well, he's about to do a break, so we're going to have to come back. So close the door real quick. And this is the... closet that serves as the engineering office.
Kat, you never had to see him naked, did you?
Well,
I thought that would be an easy question.
There were some. I was like, oh, let me see my pictures of Jed, for today. And one of the first things that popped up, because you know how we all had our closets in the studio where we could store stuff, and instead of having paper hearts, you cut out and you'd string along. Like a paper hearts for Valentine's Day. He had paper heart penises. I don't think they were actual size, but that was what his closet looked like.
There was a time, kids, where doing things that were against the rules was cool.
No, there was no calling HR.
And that is not now.
There was also a rumor that I took as the truth that at one point Jed started. There was I don't know if it's still there. It was like the plastic pen bowl. There were pens and scissors and stuff. The things we need.
Oh yes,
that
this
Jed
right here.
Yes, that Jed would stick all of the things in his pants and then put them back in.
In his butt was the rumor was the butt.
Yeah, so I did not use any of those.
I didn't either. I looked at that. That thing's been in here for 40 years.
I'm like, no.
Most of it has been in his butt.
Yeah.
That is not what you want.
Yeah. So there's
Or
that.
it is what you want. Hi, Tami.
Hey, Jed would also, when you came back from the bathroom in the Burbank studios, he would smell your hands to see if you washed them or not. So,
wow.
Yeah, he was really hygienically
inclined,
concerned.
Hygienically challenged. Well, we are all here. There's Freddy Snakeskin. There's Richard Blade. There's Kat. There's Tami, Heide. There's Freddy Snakeskin. Everybody is here to celebrate the man, the myth, the legend who was Jed the Fish. It's Kevin Ryder. We have a studio full of people celebrating the person that was Jed the Fish, who passed away earlier this morning. Andy Schuon was the program director in 1990.
Yes.
1989?
89 to 92. Yeah. Short stop.
He's the guy that hired Beat and I. Yeah. When you got here and you heard Jed.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you how
what could have been going through your head?
Let me tell you how I first heard him.
Okay.
Which was I was driving in from my last gig in Denver.
Right.
So I think out by maybe by the Inland Empire someplace, I started to pick up the signal. And I'm listening to KROQ for over an hour. And there's this guy on, and he doesn't say the call letters of the station for over an hour.
Right.
Nothing. No IDs, no call letters, nothing, which is kind of a common thing.
This is a thing. Back in the day,
radio,
you had to
say it a lot because people had to write it down and remember it to get ratings.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, this is going to be an easy job. I'm going to just come in. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to say, hey, guys, you got to say the station. And that's going to be like immediately a lift.
Right.
And I meet Jed and I said, hey, I just want to talk to you about one of the things when we have our first meeting. I said, I noticed that you didn't happen to mention like where you worked the first hour that I was listening. And he said, everyone knows if I'm on the station, it must be KROQ. Who else would hire me? And that was his. He's like, I'm obviously only a KROQ disc jockey.
That is so Jed. I love that so much.
Yeah,
I've often wondered where else he would fit in.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine him on Kiss FM.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of is.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's me. Of course it's KROQ. It's me.
And I was thinking about I was thinking about Jed and my time with him, and the thing that a lot of people may not realize is when you think about people who are personalities or hosts of things, they're centered on their own program. He was centered on KROQ as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted the whole thing to work. And when you guys came along, and I don't know if people realize this or they remember, you did not have listeners at first.
Right.
You did not have an audience.
Yes.
Yeah, it took a minute.
Uh-huh.
And he was concerned. And he decided, he knew that for KROQ to be successful, it had to have a morning show that worked. And so he took it upon himself to take little pieces of your show and play them in the afternoon and endorse, support, and promote the fact that you guys were on in the morning. So people, you know, the patient would not reject the organ transplant. And it worked over
That's
time.
crazy.
Yeah. He was really...
He came to you specifically and said, can I do this?
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. No. And he was a sweet guy.
Yeah.
Just a really wonderful person. And I loved working with him.
Darcy, you're also here. What were you doing here at the time?
I was music director 92 to 94 till I joined Andy at MTV. Following Andy, my career, I think first of all, I want to say to all the kitchen stories, my office was where the kitchen was.
Oh, no.
It was really bad.
Oh, no.
It was really bad. So I have lots of kitchen stories, but I think everyone blew things up, honestly.
Yeah.
It was very much the culture at that time. But one of my jobs was the shows, the Weenie Roast, Acoustic Christmas, getting the artists to come on and do interviews with you guys. So you're wrangling. Come on, let's do it. These are the grunge days, the early 90s, and everyone's very...
They weren't thrilled to do interviews
difficult.
at the time. Yes.
Yeah, everyone was very difficult. But we would somehow manage to do it and get everyone on, and everyone worked with me. But Rage Against the Machine did not want to do one that
which
year.
They normally don't.
Correct. But Jed was very determined. We're going to get them, Darcy. And I said, maybe... we'll just do something else.
Yeah, I've found out if they really don't want to do an interview, it's not going to be good anyway, so let's not force the issue.
Correct. So we went down to their dressing room. This is Universal Amphitheater, rest in peace, and knocked on the door. We heard them in there. Hello. Now, to this day, I can't tell you exactly who was in there. So Tom and Zach, if you're listening, I don't know if it was you who was there, but we pounded and we couldn't hear anyone anymore. And we heard a door or a window or something on the other side open. And I'm like, does this thing have a window? Like, we didn't know. And we heard conk, and Jed's like, they're going down the hill. And
they jumped out the window?
Well, this is what we think. And we ran outside, and we see two humans, which we think are Tom and Zach, running. And Jed and I ran down the hill. A Universal Amphitheater, for everybody who worked there, was
quite steep. Yeah.
It was. And I'm like, what is happening to my life? That this is what I'm doing. And we did not get a Rage Against the Machine interview.
Yeah, that's not surprising. But I love the dedication to running down a hill after them.
Yes, whoever was supposed to interview them. I guess Jed would have gotten that interview had we been successful, but I can't think of any of the rest of you guys that would have run down a hill with me after an artist.
I don't know that he would have done a great interview with Rage Against the Machine. I love Jed.
I would like to have heard it, though.
Same.
I mean, it would have been really uncomfortable.
Yes, Sluggo.
I have to say, one of the famous interviews that Jed did was with Trent Reznor. And I don't remember, did he ask us this before, Rick, that if he should do this, or did he just jump in and do it?
What year is it? What year Trent Reznor?
94, 95.
Okay, so I'm there.
Yeah, there. But basically, his question for Trent was...
Trent is also, I love...
Oh, yeah.
A difficult interview because he just
is.
doesn't like it.
But he'll do it. He'll
really
do
care
it.
for a question that Jed posed to him. What if your name was Asshole?
Jed asked Trent Reznor this question.
What if your name was Asshole?
That's it. That's the actual audio of him asking
What if
Trent.
your name was
What did he say?
Asshole?
Yeah, but what did Trent say?
I think
He came back
Did he
with
leave?
another one in kind. No, he came back with another fake name.
Because
What if my name was?
I think I would change it
Oh,
to...
that's good.
That's great.
Okay, I don't remember it. That's really
That's a
good.
Jed interview.
That is.
Love
That
Jed.
is.
I remember the interview with Morrissey that he did, this landmark Morrissey interview, and he asked him if we could give away his used tea bag as a contest.
Yeah.
And we did. We
Yeah.
did.
Wait,
Yeah.
Morrissey did?
I remember
Yeah,
that.
no. Jed asked Morrissey if we could have his tea bag.
Oh, gotcha.
And then
Are
John
you
Frost
positive
made
he was asking for a drink?
Made a promo.
He was.
Oh,
it had to
yes.
do with the beverage. Yes, it did. And then John Frost made a big promo out of it,
The
with
tea bag?
Morrissey's tea bag.
Yeah, I remember that one. A long string of Morrissey things
course.
in the early 90s.
Of course, yes.
Yep.
Well, Jed the Fish will be missed.
Rest in peace.
Rest
Yep.
in peace, my friend. 106.7 KROQ is KROQ. It is a weird day here because we lost Jed the Fish this morning. And Jed the Fish there's no more person that is KROQ than Jed. He is a summary of everything that KROQ was. And we have a lot of people in the studio. A lot of people have stopped by to pay their respects. Richard Blade, thank you. Everybody that's stopping by. Megan Holiday is here.
Hello.
Along with Rick.
Hello, yes.
Can I call you? Okay. He
Can I
doesn't
call
like
you
to be
Rick?
on the air. I don't
I know, but I'm really proud of him.
I don't
He's
know
done it
the
twice
rules.
in one day.
I know.
So obviously, I didn't get to work with Jed because I came in 2016. But of course, I heard the stories, which a lot of them were shared today. And I told Rick, I said, I really want to meet Jed the Fish. So we go over to his house one day, and within 30 seconds of meeting him, we're in his living room, and he goes, I'm hot. And he just takes his pants off. And he's
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Within how much time?
I would say 30 seconds, 45 seconds,
Yeah,
something
about
like that.
But he did announce, I need to take my pants off. I'm
Yes.
hot.
Did that happen a lot, Rick?
No.
What?
But I could not have thought of a better way.
But Megan
to
took
meet
it like
this
a
man.
champ.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
just like, all right. And I
Well-
go, I'm out of here.
I immediately busted out my camera and started filming and taking
Sure.
photos, as you do.
That's crazy. Who thinks like that?
Jed.
Only Jed.
So that day we were talking, and, Rick is a great photographer. So, we were saying, why don't we do a photo shoot, a Bowie-inspired photo shoot? So we start planning this with Jed, and we go over on this day for the shoot. And it was really awesome because we went all out. Like, I got makeup artists, and Jed wanted them to cut a mohawk and sent them out to get this hairspray paint, and his hair was all red. His makeup was all done. And so we sit down, and I brought this record player in, and we're taking the photos and everything. Yes,
Those
exactly.
photos are crazy.
Aren't they crazy? Right? And I have those up on my Instagram if anyone wants to look at them. And so all of a sudden, Jed just rips the needle off, and then he's like, he's just like pretending to smoke it, and he's, just doing all of the crazy Jed things that you would do.
Right.
And I mean, that day was just, to me, that's just my favorite memories.
That is, I think, every day for Jed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that summarizes basically every single day for that guy.
And one day we went over there, and Jed decided he really wanted to make homemade pizzas. Okay. So we go to the grocery store.
Is this something that he does?
Maybe.
You don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
We don't know.
we went to his local grocery store, so because we were in Pasadena,
Right.
And we're walking in, and I'm like, "Well, is anybody going to know who he is?" Because I've been shopping with him before, and it's sometimes embarrassing.
Of course.
So we're walking down the aisle, and there was like a gallon ice cream tub, but it was full of butter, and I just said, "Oh my God, who would need that much butter?" And Jed just yells at the top of his lungs, "I want to F it." And I'm looking around like, oh God, who saw that?
Did anyone see?
Did he what?
Did anyone see?
I don't think they did, but I censored that.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh,
yeah. I'm sure that they'd have the security footage. I'm sure they play that a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And the
It was
pizzas were an absolute disaster.
Yep.
Almost lit stuff on fire
Yep.
for sure. But we sat there and we ate the pizzas.
He insisted on doing
Yes.
them on the barbecue.
Yes.
What?
Not a good idea.
He insisted on making homemade pizza on the barbecue.
Yes.
Yep.
Like you do.
Like you do if you're Jed the Fish. You don't do anything normal if you're Jed the Fish.
No, you don't.
We are going to miss that dude. This is Kevin Ryder. We are all gathered together to remember our friend Jed the Fish, who passed away earlier this morning. We all knew that it was going to happen at some point, but it's always sad when it does. Sluggo, should I play this interview about Evangeline?
Yes, Angeline.
Angeline, sorry. It's not Evangeline. It's Angeline. Okay, so this is a story about the Jed.
What is it? What is it called?
The Angeline story.
Yes, please, the Angeline story. I tell people that all the time, and I always forget that it was actually Angeline at the center of the story.
Whatever happened to her?
I haven't
I
seen one of
saw
her
her Corvette driving down Fountain the other day.
Nice. Was she still out there?
With Herb corpse in it.
I wasn't close enough to determine if she was breathing.
Okay. Well, she had this single that was, well, like a lot of new wave novelty songs. They were just kind of reworked 50s rock songs, right? And it was just dreadful. And I tried to get out of playing it, and Rick Carroll said, no, you have to play it. So he knew exactly what time it was coming up. So the song ends, and I said, God, that was awful. And then the phone rings. It's Rick Carroll, the program director of KROQ, informing me that he is at Angeline's house with Angeline's parents and Angeline's manager, the president of the label, and God knows who else. And they'd been waiting to listen to her song for the first time on the radio. And here I toasted it in about 2 seconds. Yeah, it took them God knows how long to record that terrible thing. And I slashed it apart in less than 2 seconds.
And how dare you be honest?
Yeah, how dare I tell the truth?
How dare you speak what everyone that was listening was thinking at that moment?
Right.
I love that about Jed. He basically doesn't care what he's supposed to say ever. Gia.
Hey, Kevin.
Hi there.
Hi.
Tell us your story about Jed the Fish.
Well, I'm going to begin with anybody who's in the studio right now who says that they never saw Jed naked as a liar, except for maybe Renee, who also, okay, Darcy, but I still think that's questionable. But Renee actually totally called it a few minutes ago when she said that Jed leaving us was just a dick move. And so, speaking of moves, I used to spend a ton of time at his house, and we would stay up till all hours just talking and playing music and working out in his studio, kind of messing around with stuff. And so I just once asked him, like, how many times have you been to rehab? It's well known that Jed had a substance abuse issue in the way back, and he just finally said, I don't know, it could have been like 6 times or 7 times. It depends on whether or not you count the time I stole the car from Betty Ford and I left, but I brought it back the next day. So I don't know if that just is part of the 6th time or if that's 6 and 7.
He stole a car from Betty Ford.
He stole a car from Betty Ford. He snuck out of Betty Ford.
Sneak out.
Went on a little joyride.
Okay. And then the next day?
He brought the car back and checked himself back in, which I find admirable.
I find that admirable as well. He was very open about his drug use. He
was incredibly open about it. And he actually, God love him, he was so great with my kids. He actually called my children Sophia the trout and Miles the guppy. And so when he was pretty ill for a little while. This was several years ago. And he would, with my family, we would
I think
have.
you need to turn your headphones down just a little
Where's
bit.
my
I'm sorry.
volume? Sorry,
Yeah,
there we go. So he had we had our iPads, and we would do like family movie night with me up in Tahoe and him down here. And he told my kids, he said, "I am the reason you should never do adult drugs." He was really open with my children about,
Really? How old
"Don't
were they?
do this." They were probably at the time, I don't know, 10 and 12, 9 and 11.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really open with them about it, which I loved. And then I would be remiss if nobody mentions Alice. His dog, Alice,
Yes.
was the great love of his life. And he would get into that yellow Porsche of his with his license plate that read AWZHIT. Actually gave that to my daughter when she was 16 to drive around town once. But he would put Alice in that car, and Alice was his companion. And I happened to know that when he got home yesterday, and they had his home set up for hospice, there were portraits of Alice in the room with him, and that comforted me a lot.
That's very nice.
He was a wonderful, wonderful, filterless freak of a human being, and I'm a better person for having known him.
It's KROQ. It is Kevin Ryder. We are all dealing with the loss of our good friend Jed the Fish, who was one of a kind, one of one. And he passed away earlier this morning, and we're celebrating a lot of his life and the way that he interacted with all of us. That was beautiful. And Freddy Snakeskin is joining us in the studio now. Hey, Freddy.
Hey, coming apart?
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's hit me and a lot of other people very hard. It's been a rough couple of years, actually, for KROQ veterans.
Yeah.
I think it would be fitting to say something about Dusty Street, as long as we're
sure.
Because she preceded Jed to the great beyond. It's about a week after her birthday 2 years ago in 23. So I think it's good to remember her as well, as long as we're speaking of colorful, once-in-a-lifetime, unforgettable characters. I think you couldn't find a couple of them more than these guys.
How did you guys zero in on such weirdos? And I use the word weirdo with respect. I love people that are weird. They make the world go round.
I don't know. How do you mean zero in?
I don't know. You seem to attract. Did they come to you? Did you go find people that were nuts? How did that work?
Just lucky, I guess. And Rick Carroll had a knack for picking weird people to be on the air. He also, a few that maybe weren't quite so weird.
Right, sure.
That could have been.
Sure. All right, we're trying to...
yeah, it's a weird... it's like saying, how did life on Earth come to be?
Yes, true.
All those years
I'm not
ago?
asking you to explain the Big Bang.
No, but it's very similar because you can't really explain how it happened. There's no rhyme or reason for it. It was a station without a license for so long. That's one of the things that attracted me to it.
Tell people that quickly about how this radio station didn't actually have a license.
Well, they had a license in the 70s, but the owners squandered it horribly and mismanaged the station. And everything was, falling apart.
And then they turned it off for a while, right? A couple of years?
I believe they did, yes. And then a guy who was owed, I think, $50,000 by the original ownership says, this station goes off the air, I'm not going to get my money back. So he sent a couple of guys up to the transmitter site with bolt cutters, and he paid the electric bill, and he bought some bare bones radio equipment. He sent them up there with a Roberts reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Wow.
With about an hour of programming. And so...
this radio station is a miracle.
Yeah, he had no authorization to do that. His name was never on the license. But he just wanted his money back.
Wow.
So as long as the station was still broadcasting, they could not declare the license forfeited and dark.
Gotcha.
So they had to keep it going. And that's what Ken Roberts theory was in getting involved in it. He just wanted his money back, and then he discovered it was not a bad way to rake in a lot of money just by selling thin air.
I believe we have Swedish Egil on the phone. Hello? Hello? Are you there? I don't see him.
Hello? Testing.
I don't think he is there. We will have to take a break, and then we will come back and try to get him on the phone. We are celebrating the life of Jed the Fish, who passed away this morning, and we just got a call from Swedish Egil. Hey, Swedish. Do I call you Swedish or Egil?
Well, you can call me Egil, whatever you used to call me back in the day. Welcome back to KROQ, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Tell us your thoughts on Jed.
Oh, my God. Jed, he changed my life because I started listening to KROQ. He was playing bands like Oingo Boingo, Devo, Sparks, the Go-Go's, the Talking Heads. Nobody else was playing that kind of music. And he sounded so different, like he was not a top 40 or boss jock. He had a totally different delivery. So I really fell in love with him and listened to KROQ a lot. And then about a year later, I started working at KROQ around the time that Richard Blade started working there. And I would... work the night shift, and then during the day I would hang out doing Jed's shift. We did something called the Nyquist exercises together.
I'm sorry?
Which was like the Nyquist exercises. It was like a spoof on Richard Simmons and Jane Fonda type exercising that they used to do. And then Jed would let me introduce some new music. That was my way of getting a song on KROQ. And then I remember... there was a year when Jed the Fish went on vacation to Hawaii with the rest of the KROQ jocks, and he had Danny Elfman filling in for him on the air. So I got to board up with Danny Elfman, and I was, a fan already. Got to hang out with Danny for several days, and we sort of became friends. And then Danny would invite me and Jed to come to his house to listen to Oingo Boingo records before they came out. He would really ask us, "What do you?" Play it from a tape and say, is this cool? Will you guys play this on KROQ? So that was a great memory.
That's very cool.
Moscow Eddie, right?
I'm sorry?
Moscow Eddie, right?
Yeah, Moscow Eddie, exactly. And then, I kept in contact with him, even after I left KROQ. I left KROQ in 1991, but, would talk to Jed often. And then more recently, we did some 80s new wave parties together, and we did one party. It was like a Halloween party, and everybody dressed up. And Jed came in normal clothes.
Of course.
With a big coat, and then a big prosthetic penis. Like this thing was big, hanging between his legs, and he would go up and talk to people. And, the women were in shock.
Of course.
So...
But they knew what to expect from Jed the Fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was
Was
crazy.
a great guy. We did some parties, just recently in Orange County in Huntington Beach. I think Richard Blade was there too, and Freddy and Jed the Fish. Jed came out and got on the mic, and people would. It was a great time. So, I'm going to miss him a lot. There was nobody else.
There was nobody else like him. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Swedish Egil. We appreciate the phone call very much.
You're very welcome.
Hi, Egil, by the way.
It's doing a great job.
It's, in case you didn't know, it's me, Freddy. Hi, Egil.
Hey, Freddy, how's it going? Yeah, I've been listening to your stories, too, and remembering how it was in the very early days of KROQ and Ken Roberts and all the nuttiness.
All the nuttiness, indeed. All right. Thank you, Egil. We appreciate it. All right. So let's wrap it up for right now, I guess. We lost Jed the Fish this morning. That sucks. We got to live with Jed the Fish for a long time. That was great. Any parting words from you guys?
Yeah, we lost Dusty Street 2 years ago, and that is it. No more.
We're done losing.
No more of this death stuff.
No more of the death stuff. All right. That's
and the thing that Jed taught me, and probably a lot of us, is, well, first of all, nobody loved being Jed more than Jed loved being Jed.
Right.
But as radio professionals broadcasting, he always said, they'll know if you're not having fun. So always have fun. Yes. And that was a gift. It was a real gift.
Yes.
And then, of course, he said, F fun night. So
of course he did, yes.
That encapsulated everything, and I will miss one of my dearest friends who I could always count on him to be inappropriate with me at all times.
That's the one thing you could always anticipate.
I am going to miss that so much.
Yes, very much so. Thank you.